Good morning and welcome to Vision in Action Live. We have a presentation today on the way things work and a discussion with Karen Amlin, certified professional coach and author of Be That Leader. She's also the founder of 7KCC, a leadership training organization. Welcome, Mrs. Amlin, to Vision in Action Live today. I'm Jim Boswell. I'm your host and the author of Lifelong Fulfillment, Take Charge of Your Life. So today's presentation is going to be on how things work. We've divided this up because it's fairly dense and long into two parts. This will be part one today. Let's look at how this might impact your lives. So we recognize that we're doing much better in the world. We have abundance in many cases, rather than scarcity working against us. And all of that's well and good, but it doesn't trickle down to us individually for free. So individuals still need to have competency in things like career, financing, history, government, math, science, psychology, and all the other peripheral disciplines to do well in their chosen endeavors, their real lifelong focus. Now, this may not be very high on your personal priority list, but I want to convince you that you need to include it as part of your priority list. And if you do this, it's important because number one is you can steer your path to success and personal development a lot better. And on the other end, where unintended consequences occur, you can reduce some of your risk to those unintended consequences and things you don't know about. So there are definitely advantages to knowing these things. So today we're going to look at information, what's happening there. We're going to look at the obsolescence of factual information and how education is an enabler. So let's start with information. This is a small graph on the left-hand side that shows the explosion of information since the year 2000. And most of you that recognize graphs like this will see that this is an exponential growth of information. And it challenges us individually and professionally to keep up and also to discriminate between the useful information and the simply superfluous. Again, if you remember Pareto's rule, about 20% of this is really very impactful, whereas the other 80% really is just a distraction. It also, in our case, depends on the fact that this is built and held and moderated by computers, database systems, and artificial intelligence as we move in further along. But these are systems we don't personally control. And there are also systems that depend upon the infrastructure that's been established for them. So we're not in control if something were to go wrong. So think about that as well in your digesting of this topic. And also there's risk in securing this authoritative information out of the system. Again, not all information is created equal. You need to have the right to access, and you need to have the security of that access. So that's just to give you a glimmer. As we go forward, there's going to be more and more information. It will continue to be explosive. Now, if we look at facts, the graph on the left-hand side, if you look at what remains, that's, how much you might learn about something. And over time, it deteriorates to where it's very minimal in its value proposition. Well, the half-life concept is how long does it take for half of that information you learn to become obsolete? And the problem is that's accelerating. Information ages much more quickly than before. Modern estimates, by way of example, is that a half-life of an engineering degree now is 2.5 to 5 years. 40 years ago, it was 30 years. These days, it could take 10 to 20 hours of study per week just to keep up with an engineering degree. These comments and information really identifies the need for continuous education in your own life and also on behalf of not just yourself, but your career, your family, and everything you want to accomplish. So let's talk about education. This information is directly from the US Census, circa 2020, and the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. So if you look at education level on the left-hand side, you'll see everything from a PhD to something less than high school. And you can see that in the second column, unemployment is a whole lot less in those higher level educations than for people who just complete, say, a high school education, up to 1/3 less. That's pretty significant. If you look at the next column over, this is the median weekly income in 2020. And you'll see that some of these higher ones, say at the PhD level, are 300% of what someone who completes or just barely completes a high school education. Very significant. And then you can see in the right-hand column the quantity of people in 2020 that worked in these levels or had these education. And you'll see that that's only about 15% of the total workforce. So you see the Pareto rule in action here, that about 15% of a workforce is producing about 80% of the available incomes. So you're seeing it in black and white here in terms of how education can facilitate incomes, outcomes, and your personal development and fulfillment. So education based on this is absolutely crucial to achieving your goals and making your way in the world. It doesn't mean you have to have a PhD if you're going to be a plumber. Education requirements vary based upon what your goal sets are. But education does correlate very positively with achievements, incomes, and outcomes and your personal development. And so continuous education is something you really need to embrace and make it work for you instead of considering it a burden. So to sum up today's presentation, you've got a lot to learn throughout your life at different points in your life. You can't learn it all beginning as a 22-year-old college graduate, but over time, you can arm yourself with all of this information and education. Again, education should be commensurate with what you think your goals are, and your goals may change, so your need for education may also change. Education and career choices determine income. Income helps facilitate all your personal development and all your personal plans. So in a couple of weeks, we'll talk about part 2 of the way things work. This will be in other areas and other disciplines. In the meantime, go to the website and look at the newsletter called The Way Things Work, and all that information will be there in much more detail. And there's other helpful things at lifelongfulfillment.com for you to access as well. And now is the time in our podcast when we entertain the perspectives of people living self-directed lives and point solution experts. Today we have with us Karen Amlin, professional certified coach, who does corporate, personal, and relationship counseling. As well, she is the founder of 7KCC, a leadership training organization, and she's also author of Be That Leader. Karen, welcome to Vision in Action Live.
Thank you very much, Jim. Thanks for having me here.
It's great to have you. We look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you.
Maybe you could start off with amplifying on that introduction as you think is appropriate, and tell us how you got to where you are today.
Okay. So you did mention the counseling. I'm not doing counseling anymore. It's all coaching.
Okay.
So I did start at counseling. That's where I did begin, and it's been about 10 years. And just very naturally, without knowing that would happen, I started to get more and more corporate leaders in, owners of big companies, and I really enjoyed that work. So that's how it branched out into me moving from regular counseling to this more corporate coaching. So I've really enjoyed this process.
Well, good, good. What got you started on it? Where did your interest come from?
It's funny. I think it's something that's in us. it's there. I'm the oldest child, so maybe it's being called, I'm going to say bossy instead of a leader. But when you're the oldest, you're in that leadership role. So um, I love I love leadership. And when you get to meet really great leaders, it's so inspiring. And I've learned so much from the work I've done with them. And I've also identified things that don't work. You know, leaders that you can tell the ego's in the way, intention isn't there. It makes a big difference. So for me, I feel like it's always been there, but I started to really study it and take courses, and it's a real passion for me. I want to really help people who are in work environments enjoy their work more because they've got a sense of meaning and belonging at work. And that starts with leadership. So it's a big calling for me for sure.
Well, great, great. Well, with that said, maybe you could talk to us about intention, like what
Mhm.
it is, how, why I should care, and how does one begin to start exercising intention?
Mhm. It's funny because years and years ago, I went through a really hard time. I was just in my late 20s, just very lost and not in a good place, and feeling like I wasn't where I should be at that age, which I look back now and think I was only in my 20s, but it's it felt not good at that time. I'm sorry, I think something's open. Can you hear that ding? You can edit this out, right?
No,
Okay.
you're fine.
Okay. So what I realized was when I started to make these positive changes, it was because I was being intentional about making those positive changes. I took control of my life instead of my life controlling me. So to be intentional just means everything you're doing is on purpose and with a purpose. You think a certain way, you take action steps, your behaviors, everything is done on purpose. You're not just leaving things to chance, and you're not just blaming your past or circumstances or environment on why you're where you're at. You are intentionally working on being who you want to be and creating your life to be what you want your life to be. So that being intentional, and when I was going through that hard time, my intention every day was to work on my mindset, get up early, work on positive thinking, take one step forward that was in a good direction. I knew it wasn't going to just happen overnight, but taking a step every day brings you closer. And that has been every client that I've worked with, and I've worked with a lot of people. The people who reach their goals are the ones who are intentional about reaching their goals. They get up with that in their head. They set their action steps for the day. They know what their mindset's going to be for the day, and they are intentional about following through. So even if they don't feel like doing something, they're doing it anyway because that's what they know they need to do to get where they want to go. So for me, the way you start is just by even paying attention to how much you're following through. People deal with procrastination all the time. You're not special if you procrastinate. I think people think they're really bad if they procrastinate. Everybody has that in them to procrastinate.
Mhm.
It's things we don't want to do. When you're intentional, you say, "Yep, I don't feel like doing it, but I'm doing it anyway." Because not doing it isn't the answer. The answer is just pushing myself through it and get through that step. So it is the first step is recognizing that we can't always love everything we have to do, but we have to know what our desired outcome is and be super intentional about taking the steps that are going to get us there, whether we feel like it or not. We just do it because it's part of the deal. It's how we get there.
Right. Well, we being human beings, we're often fraught with the question of if I do this, well, what's in it for me? So somehow I have to have some vision of, I'm either getting away from something bad or going towards something that's good that I want. How does that happen for people?
hmm Um, it's a real dedication to what this outcome is that you want. You have to fall in love with the picture of what you want. I think that's such a huge part of it. You have to be specific. You can't just say, I want to be successful. That's such a broad term. Or I want to be healthy. Again, it's a big, broad term. We need to understand the details of what that picture looks like for us.
Right.
And what's it going to mean to us or to our family when we get there? So if you can fall in love with the real detailed picture of what it is you want to accomplish, that picture is what will get you through those days that either don't go well, or you don't feel like doing something, you don't have the energy, or you've had a bad couple days. That intention is what it'll move you through when you've got a clear picture of what you want. So is, sleeping in going to get me this big picture? No, getting up and getting going is going to get me that big picture, and I can feel it. And keeping that picture in front of you every day. When I was designing that huge leadership program that I worked on, it was 2 years, because I have clients too. And there were times, thank God I understood the big picture of what I was trying to do, because I would have just said, forget this. It was so much work and challenging in ways I didn't anticipate. If I wasn't clear on the picture, I would have just said, this is too much. Like, I'm doing well with my clients, I don't need this. And I would have just put it off. But I didn't. I knew that there's a purpose. So understanding that purpose kept me moving through those days that were just really tough, really, really tough. Does that help answer that question, Jim?
Sure.
Yeah.
I appreciate the answer.
Thank you.
It rings true. Uh, Another thing is, can you go this alone? Once you realize you have an intention to, move away from something negative or move towards something positive, can it be self-taught, or is this one of those things where you really need some guidance and training? And how would one go about that? What are
Mhm.
your recommendations?
So I think there isn't a black and white answer for that. I think it depends on the individual. I'm somebody that is very self-motivated and can go learn the materials I need to learn, or sign up for courses if I think they're right for me. Um, I would say it depends on the individual. Sometimes people need that support at the beginning. They need a little bit of the like cheerleader stuff beside them. So having a coach or some family members or accountability group, it helps them kind of get those new habits in place, and they need that accountability. For others, they just need the clear picture and they're good with doing it on their own. So I think this self-awareness is really important. If somebody is looking to make these changes, they have to be very self-aware and be honest with themselves, whether they're going to need a coach, a trainer, courses, an accountability group, support from their family or their friends. They're going to have to know what it is they need
Right.
and just be okay with that. It's okay. There's no right or wrong. I've had clients that say, can I text you every day and let you know I did go to the gym or I did go do this? I'm like, sure, you can text me. They don't need it. Like I'm not thinking they need it, but if that helps them feel accountable because they want to send me that text,
Sure.
it's okay. It's fine. No big deal. I just give them a thumbs up. It's good to go. Eventually they don't need it anymore, but it's fine if they do. Yeah.
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 Okay. All right. So, if you have made that determination now that you're going to do that,
Hmm.
what kind of things does a person need to look to do to grow what you call personal empowerment, or,
Oh,
these skill sets?
yeah. Ooh. You got to get real with yourself. And I say ooh, because for some people they stay so busy and so social and loud and out there because they don't want to go inward. So
Mhm.
that all of those distractions keep them from having to get real with themselves. If you want to make a real change, a long-lasting change, you have to be willing to sit with yourself. You've got to spend time in the quiet. You need to write things out. You need to do some assessments on yourself and say, okay, here's this pattern I keep doing. Say it's self-sabotage. A lot of people self-sabotage. I got to get real with that and own the part that's mine to own.
Mhm.
So I feel like it really starts with you as the individual getting real with your good patterns. What are the things that are going to help me? The things I'm good at and the patterns I need to change so that I can make, a new path for myself. So it starts with the individual getting real with themselves. And if they can do that on their own, great. If they need to go talk to somebody to do that, that's okay too. It's again up to the individual.
Right. I can imagine sometimes you simply have to learn how self-discipline works.
Oh, yeah. 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 I've had clients think, They think I have something like a unique trait, like you're so disciplined, but that's on purpose. It's, I've taught myself to be disciplined. There's the
Mhm.
intention part again, because I understand if I'm not, it's really easy for things to go off track. I don't want to go off track. I've been there. I don't want that for my life. I love that I have a schedule and I've got my action steps planned for the day and I know the things I'm working on. And, you know, I don't, I don't leave it to chance. Interesting things happen when you're this structured and you set yourself up for good opportunities that might feel like, wow, where'd that come from? But it's because you're doing all the right things. You're setting yourself up to have those opportunities come to you. So it's not because I'm different than other people. I get up and don't feel like doing those things some days too. I do, but I know how to talk myself through it. I don't live in that procrastination place or self-sabotage anymore. I'm like, of course you don't feel like doing it. Do it anyway. You don't have to feel like doing it to do it.
Mhm.
But when it's done, I feel really good. So I just focus on how will I feel when it's done. I
Right.
give this example. You know, I've come out of my last appointment sometimes at night, it might be 8 or 8:30. And if I have some supper dishes like at the pot or something in the sink, I don't feel like doing that at 8:30 at night. But I will say to myself, am I going to feel like doing that anymore in the morning when I wake up? Well, no way. I don't want to wake up to a dirty pot. And that's all I have to tell myself. And then I'm good. I just get it done. It takes 5 minutes. It's done. So I just know how to move through that feeling of, ugh, I don't feel like doing it. Well, I'm
Right.
not going to feel like doing it in the morning. There's no way. So just do it now and it's done. It's a simple example, but it's that easy. Yeah.
Yeah. So when all this comes together, how does one begin to measure success?
Hmm.
And, both, well, actually, if you're measuring success, you're also measuring your failures.
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
because we all make mistakes along the way. So maybe
100%.
some comments about that.
So I think everybody needs to have their own little milestones that they measure. I had milestones and like on creating that program again, I'll go back to that. I I had some milestones like landing page done on the website, first course finished, one ebook ready. Like, and every time I hit those, I celebrated those. Like we're going for dinner. It's a big, it's a big bump. I'm not to the end, but that was a big one and now that's done. So I think creating your own timeline, and for some people it might be tiny little steps that they need to celebrate because to
Mhm.
them those tiny little steps were actually big steps, you
Right.
know. So I everybody needs to create a timeline of those steps. When I was doing my education, and I people might think I'm crazy. I wrote out, I had this whole paper, and I love the hand actually writing it. I had all of the big projects that were going to be due, all of the classes I had to take, and this was so huge, this list. And I showed my husband. He's like, "Why are you putting all that down on paper? That looks so scary." Like it was so much stuff I had to do to get there. I go, because every time I finish one, I'm going to highlight it off. And then that's going to start getting exciting that I'm getting closer and closer to the end. So for me, seeing that paper get, oh, there's another bright yellow highlight, another bright yellow highlight, I could see how far I came. So yeah, the
Mhm.
first chunk looked scary, but then it got really exciting the closer I was getting to the end. So, and then the measuring the failures part. So I teach clients, I don't look at them as failures, I look at them as feedback. So
Mhm.
if I do something that doesn't work, it taught me what doesn't work. So that's valuable. That's never going to be a failure when I can get something for me that I know in the future, don't do that. It didn't work last time we tried that. Or to help a client and down the road and say, listen, you can do what you want, but I tried this and here's how it went. It didn't go well. Here's what I got from it. So taking that and learning from it, and boy, I could do 10 books on what I learned didn't work. That's again part of the process. So helping people understand that every bump, every challenge, everything that doesn't work is part of the process of getting you to where you want to go. You cannot get a big leap without having some of those things happen along the way. I just don't believe that.
Right.
It's how resilient you stay while that's happening.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to maybe contextualize the comments that you're making here a little bit.
Hmm.
You said you're doing nowadays a lot of work with, business executives and
Yeah.
like that. And in the real world, that's a small minority of the population.
Hmm.
I personally think a lot of these concepts are directly transferable to everyone who has any desire in life at all or
Yes.
any focus. So that we're not talking about an exclusive club, we're talking about a series of tools and processes that can be used by anyone.
I
Um,
agree with you 100%. 100%. Yes. Yes.
okay, yeah, because we don't want to leave our audience with the idea, well, this is only for the very few.
No.
But I challenge myself a lot with the question of, well, how many people will get that initial intention locked down? In other words,
Mhm.
go from no intention to intention, because maybe they weren't, didn't grow up in a family that, thought in that fashion, uh,
Yes.
didn't get exposed to it in school. We've become very careful of each other's feelings nowadays. And so we don't always push the uncomfortable issue of, say, lack of intention.
Hmm. And you are correct. There's a lot of blame and there's a lot of excuses and reasons why people feel they're stuck. And there are legitimate reasons and legitimate consequences. Those are real and they're factual. And there are challenges people have had that are unfair. All of those things are true. Here's what I teach, and it's not just to corporate people.
Mhm.
Here you are sitting right here today. If there is anything you want to change, this is where it is your responsibility and your honor to say, I get to try and create a change for myself. You can. It's giving yourself permission to do that and letting go of this story that's going on in your mind that there's nothing you can do about it.
Mhm.
There's always something. So it is the intention is just the change in that moment. Do you want to be sitting in this exact place a year from now? If the answer is no, then you have to start looking at what steps you can take, even if they're tiny, to start moving you in a direction that feels better than you are today. That's the truth. It's it's how bad you want something different.
Mhm.
There are people, and I've met them, and I see that whether it's corporate or it's the personal coaching I do, it's the lack of accountability on their part of why they're where they're at, because there's still your part somewhere in there. So when you can be willing to dig in there a little bit and go, oh, yeah, you know what? I do keep attracting the wrong people into my life, or I keep allowing people to treat me poorly, or I keep self-sabotaging. I start things and I don't finish them. You got
Right,
to own that piece, and then you can be starting to make a change. So the intention starts with the ownership.
right, right. Um, and also
So,
leadership concepts, the way they translate into your personal life.
mm-hmm,
You know, there seems to be also amongst those who are not business people necessarily,
mm-hmm,
fact, an opinion that perhaps business principles really don't apply to me. And I think there's a fallacy in that because businesses leverage psychology to learn to do the right things.
correct.
It just has institutionalized it better. But that's not always obvious to, Joe Blow on the street,
Mm-hmm.
should we say. And so they want to basically say that doesn't apply to me. You have a comment on that?
So it's funny because I actually go at that the other way. So when I'm sitting with leaders, I talk about them as people first,
Right.
because who you are as you walk through your personal life is what is going to translate at work. So I would say to anybody who doesn't think those business principles apply to them, it's who you are as a person is how that will impact the leadership. So if you think of it from that way, then it all matters, because it's not a position. It's not just a title. It's who you are. If you're a true leader, it's who you are as a person. So it always starts with us as a human being. And then that can translate anywhere into our, if we're stay at home and don't work outside our home, who we are as a person is going to translate, and it's going to ripple effect to our family, our friends, our kids. So if we take a job outside the home, then who we are is going to translate and have a ripple effect in whatever field of work we do or volunteer work we do. So it's again back to that ownership of owning who you are as a human being. Like, this is just who I am.
Mhm.
It's who I am. I've worked hard to have good integrity, to be honest, to be a kind person, to admit when I'd screw up, which is often, everybody does. It's okay to just own all of your good parts and the parts that need work. So I think the business principles, they do apply because it actually starts with who we are as a human being. The businesses that are losing people every day and the turnover is high, a lot of that comes because the management team is not acting in integrity, isn't being kind, isn't communicating well, isn't caring about their staff. That does happen. So it's people first. So it's you first and then the business. And I that's why I was kind of chuckling when you said it, because I always start with the person first, not the business acumen first. People first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're coming to the close of
Yeah.
this little discussion. I wanted to offer you a chance to make a comment on lifelong fulfillment if you care to, and
Mhm.
any other closing comments you might have for the audience at large.
I I do think, and maybe this sounds hokey, I do believe we all have a purpose. I do. I feel like every single person's voice matters. Their life matters. They impact people just being in their presence. And that impact can be positive and it can be negative. So to feel that lifelong fulfillment to me, and I don't know if that's true across the board, it is knowing I've done something good in the world. I am leaving it a little better than it was before me, trying to make an impact on people that is positive. And I hear that from clients a lot, that I care. They feel like I really care. That's the best compliment I can get. I can have all the knowledge and skills, but to feel cared for matters. So lifelong fulfillment, it's making a difference in people's lives. That's just how I feel. I don't know how you feel. I feel like it's just causing a ripple effect that is positive in some way out there. Um, I think that that matters more than anything, just that human kindness and impact.
Okay. So if the audience needs to reach you or wants to learn more about you, maybe you could tell them where to get in touch.
The really easy way is to go to leadertraining.online. I'm going to double check. Did I just say that right? Hold on. I wrote it down. Yes. I have so many links. Leadertraining.online. If they go to that, all of my links are there. The links to the book on Amazon, my podcast, all kinds of stuff it's all on that page. So I've got a store with some resources, coaching. They can find everything about me, all my social media links if they go there.
Okay, that's great.
Okay. That's the easiest way. Then all the links are there for them. Okay.
Well, Karen, thank you.
You're
It's
welcome.
been a pleasure to have you on Vision in Action today, and best of luck with your efforts there.
Thank you very much, Jim. I appreciate your time. Take care and keep doing the work you're doing. You're doing a great job out there.
Okay, great. Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye.
So thanks for attending today. I want to thank our guest, Karen Amlin. Remember, Vision in Action is live every 2 weeks and episodes are announced in advance. We thank you for tuning in and we hope you'll do it again. Check out the book, Lifelong Fulfillment, the collateral materials, and this podcast at lifelongfulfillment.com. There's a bunch of tools that are free for your use right there on the website. I'm your host, Jim Boswell, author of Lifelong Fulfillment, Take Charge of Your Life. We hope you have a great week, and we hope to see you next time.